My twin sister was diagnosed with celiac at 12, and when I got a tree nut allergy. At 16, she said I was copying her for attention. At our graduation dinner, she told our waiter I was lying about my allergy, and I was declared dead for 47 seconds after eating almond oil. My twin sister was diagnosed with celiac disease when we were 12. It stunted her growth, and sometimes she gets stomach aches, but that was it. When I was diagnosed with a severe tree nut allergy at 16, she told people I was copying her for attention. She'd monitor my EpiPen at school, announcing, "That's just a prop, and I'm the one who actually needs medical attention for my migraines." She even started switching my allergy bracelet with fake jewelry because other girls are always jealous of her. It was horrible, and I should have distanced myself. But instead, I stayed in the family dynamic. By the time we graduated high school, she was telling friends I gave myself an allergy on purpose, that I was jealous of her being the prettier one, and was trying to get attention in some other way. She convinced our parents I was exaggerating reactions for sympathy. She never swells like that from actual nuts. I started bringing nut-free cookies made with almond flour to test if I'd pretend to react. When I'd check food labels before eating, she'd loudly declare, "I never need to check ingredients, and I have actual health issues." During my first hospitalization for anaphylaxis, she told doctors I ate nuts on purpose for attention. She even posted on Instagram about Munchausen's in teenage girls while I had breathing tubes down my throat. She'd contaminate my lunch with trace amounts, then watched me struggle through reactions, timing how long before I gave up the act. The worst was when she told my college admissions interviewer I was faking to get disability accommodations, and nearly sabotaged my future. Then came graduation dinner. I'd been managing well, careful habits for months, Sarah noticed. Funny how you're suddenly cured when no one's watching. That evening, she pulled our waiter aside. I saw her show him her phone, whispering urgently, and then my entree arrived. The sauce tasted wrong immediately. My throat started closing. By the time they called 911, I was completely blue. A crowd had gathered around me and watched as I was declared dead for 47 seconds. Sarah performed perfectly and started crying as they loaded me in the ambulance. At the hospital, she whispered to our parents, "See, she does this for drama. I've never actually seen her have a real reaction." The ER doctor looked puzzled, but she ingested massive amounts of almond oil. Turns out she'd told the waiter I was lying about my allergy. She'd rather see me dead than admit I had a real condition. But when I tried to explain, everyone saw a traumatized girl blaming her concerned sister. So I decided I'd stop being her victim. If Sarah wanted to test allergies, I'd let her experiment her way into a prison cell. After college, I became a dietitian, specializing in anaphylaxis. Got certified in food tampering litigation. Started documenting every post she made mocking allergies. Built relationships with prosecutors who handled contamination cases. That's when I discovered she'd become an event coordinator at the country club. I found 23 mysterious allergic reactions at her events over 5 years, all documented in her social media as jealous girls ruining parties. Set up meetings with victims, recorded their stories, created an evidence file that would be indisputable. But I knew I had to wait for the perfect moment to strike, and that's when she announced her wedding date. 300 guests gathered to celebrate her perfect day. She'd been bragging for months about planning every detail, especially the menu. But prosecutors move faster when multiple victims file reports. I sat in my apartment that night, phone propped against a coffee mug while I filmed Victoria Chen's testimony. She spoke clearly about the country club brunch where she'd gone into anaphylactic shock after eating what Sarah assured her were nut-free pastries. My phone buzzed with notifications. Sarah was texting all 300 wedding guests about how her menu choices were ruined by severe nut allergies. The irony wasn't lost on me. The knock came at 11 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw Sarah standing in the hallway, designer purse clutched against her chest. I slid my evidence board behind the couch and opened the door. She walked past me without invitation, her eyes scanning my living room. They lingered on the stack of wedding magazines I'd hastily thrown over my files. She settled onto my couch and pulled out her wedding planner. We spent an hour discussing seating arrangements. She wanted Aunt Martha near the head table, but not too close to Uncle Frank after their divorce. I nodded along, making notes while keeping one hand on the magazines covering my evidence. Neither of us mentioned why she was really here. My phone rang the next morning. Joni, my best friend since freshman year, sounded uncomfortable. She explained that Sarah had asked her to be maid of honor since I was going through something. She mentioned Sarah was her daughter's godmother now. Then she added that Sarah had brought cookies to her daughter's playdate last week, specially made in the country club kitchen. That afternoon, I faced an impossible choice. Joni's birthday dinner was the same night as my meeting with the prosecutor. When I explained I had a work commitment, she grew quiet. She admitted Sarah had become important to their family. Her daughter loved Aunt Sarah's visits. I chose the prosecutor. That night, while I sat in a sterile conference room reviewing victim statements, Joni posted photos from her birthday dinner. Sarah stood next to her, both holding champagne glasses. The caption read, "Real sisters support each other through everything." 3 days later, my parents called an emergency family meeting about wedding rules. At the same time, my landlord left a voicemail about late rent. The prosecutor texted repeatedly, needing me at the office immediately. I stared at my bank balance, knowing I could either pay rent or continue building the case. I paid the rent 2 weeks late. Sarah must have found out somehow because she showed up at my door offering to help with my money troubles. She pulled out her checkbook, pen poised, waiting for me to admit I needed her help. The bridal fitting turned into a crisis. Sarah's zipper caught on the delicate lace, and she started hyperventilating. The boutique staff called 911 when she couldn't catch her breath. The incident created a paper trail of documented anxiety about her wedding. The responding EMT noted severe panic disorder in his report. My therapist mentioned Sarah's concern for me during our next session. Apparently, Sarah had called to schedule a family session, worried about my mental state. She'd provided a list of concerning behaviors she'd observed. I discovered security footage existed from the country club kitchen during several incidents. Getting it required board approval or a warrant. Sarah served on the board's social committee. The other board members were wedding guests. A week later, I stopped at the pharmacy after 72 hours of organizing evidence. Exhausted, I stumbled over my words when asking for allergy medication. The pharmacist studied me carefully and asked if I'd been drinking. I saw her make a note in their system. My boss called me into his office. He mentioned his daughter's sweet 16 was coming up. He needed the country club connection for the venue. Sarah was the only coordinator who could guarantee the date. He expressed concern about my missed work, my apparent stress, my inability to focus on my patients. Mom brought up Dad's death during Sunday dinner. She said my current obsession reminded her of how I'd acted then, creating conspiracy theories about the hospital's negligence. She exchanged glances with Sarah, who reached over to squeeze her hand. The wedding planning group chat became evidence against me. Every time I responded late or seemed distracted, Sarah's friends screenshot it. They built a narrative of an unstable sister trying to ruin the bride's special day. I filed a formal request for country club employee records. Sarah's attorney friend flagged it as stalking behavior. A cease and desist letter arrived at my apartment, threatening legal action if I continued harassing country club staff. Sarah controlled the Netflix account our family shared. She changed the password while I was watching a documentary about food contamination. When I texted to ask about it, she replied that Mom was worried about what I was watching. The next day, I ran into Jonathan, my cousin, at the grocery store. He avoided eye contact and tried to duck down another aisle. When I caught up, he admitted his husband had given him an ultimatum. If I attended Christmas, they wouldn't come. He couldn't risk his marriage for family drama. I noticed neighbors taking longer routes through the parking lot to avoid passing my door. The community Facebook group had a thread discussing the situation, though they never used names. Everyone knew who they meant. Sarah's version of the graduation dinner emerged. She claimed she'd warned the waiter about cross-contamination, not told him to ignore my allergy. She produced a timestamp showing she'd changed the order after warning him. The truth twisted into something unrecognizable. My best friend from from college, Vita, finally returned my calls. She admitted Sarah was writing her recommendation letter for nursing school. She couldn't afford to lose that support. She wished me luck but couldn't be involved. Proving Sarah lied about one incident meant revealing I'd complained about 5 different family members cooking over the years. The pattern made me look consistently dramatic about